What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and today I wanted to show you guys some updated camera spots for the newest patch in Valorant. Real quick, before I get started, I just want to let you guys know I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, and also on Sundays around 8 o'clock Eastern. We have a Discord server where we post lineups and everything else that we find, so any more new camera spots that we find throughout the patches, we always find in the Discord server, so be sure to join that. Both those links are in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video for more Valorant content, and enjoy the video, guys. So for A on Ascent, for camera spots, the best spot to get up to is right here. From here, you'll be able to have really decent height and range for every spot that you can possibly hit on this part of the map. So basically, one of the better spots is going to be back here and just as high as you can get it, as high and as far over as you can get it.
This goes here.
This is a difficult camera to see, and it'll let you know a lot of information when enemies push onto the site. You'll be able to see where everybody is. You don't have to get it necessarily right on that part. You can get it under it so you can see more of this section right here, because you can see it's kind of cut off a little bit. So that's one of the best spots for here. This jump isn't too hard to make. You just have to aim for more towards the left side of the slant there, and you'll see like you'll kind of get hooked on it for a second, and then you'll be able to walk up. So just practice that jump a little bit, you'll be able to get it. Other spots you can't put it on these anymore, and up here still works. You can get it up here too.
That goes there.
This will not really give you much information back that way. It will a little bit, but not much at the start of the round. It'll be better for catching rotations, but it will also give you great vision onto site. You can even see a little bit into hell from here. And this camera will also be very hard to shoot out. Enemies will probably leave that one there for a while. So that's another good option that you have. You also have spots like this. You can get it on this back bar over here. This is good for when you take sight and you want to see if anybody's moving up towards heaven. This is a great one to see where enemies are, if anybody's hiding back there, whoever's pushing up. And this one's kind of difficult to see because it is behind a little bit of the scaffolding over here. So that's a good camera for when the bomb goes down. I also like to put it just generally right here, or even back here.
This goes here.
Just to see if anybody's pushing up for retakes up towards the heaven area when you're defending. And then I like to hold usually back here. If the bomb site is taken, I'll have a tripwire somewhere like this.
Yes, this should
and just hold with the camera watching this way and see if anybody's pushing up. This camera is very much still possible. You just have to line up right around here. And if you look in this area here, you'll just have to jump and get the timing right. If you get it right on the edge of this wall here, you'll be able to see into heaven and the whole site really. This one might get shot out pretty quickly though, so just be careful with this one. But if you can get from here to here and up to here, you just have to have a teammate clear this for you, or just be careful with it, because if an enemy is peeking this corner, you will be exposed to that. But if you can just get to over here and then line this up properly, you will be able to hit that spot pretty easily. Other options that you have, if you get over here on the edge, you can get the camera up here and you'll be able to see enemies in heaven too. So that's another option that you have offensively. That one's way easier to hit too, so just keep your mind open for those, and just make sure that if you are pushing towards A, you have this angle cleared before anything else. For mid, my main option that I like to go for here is standing up here and getting the camera over here. Just get it as high as you can, then jump to get the extra height, and you'll be able to see all the way towards where the enemies can push up through mid initially, and you'll also be able to see the door too. If you angle this camera just like this, you'll be able to see just on the edge of this wall here, and also the camera won't be exactly facing where the enemies are, so it'll be a little bit less obvious. That camera is really far away, so people tend to not see it when they're focused on over here and here. That camera is just high enough where people just don't look that high. So that's a great way to see a lot of information on mid, and you can hold very passively with some tripwires or something like that. Now for B, the main camera that I always use, because this camera, it really never gets shot out. If you look up here, there's not really a set lineup for this, but you can get the camera on top of that sign there, and you'll be able to see, this is kind of a bad placement, but you want it a little bit below right where that sign is. Even down here, if you look straight down, you'll be able to see a little bit into B main over here. And if anybody is peeking either on that corner or on this corner here, you'll be able to see. If they're further back, you can't, but you will be able to hear a lot of footsteps from this spot too. And this camera, nobody ever looks up that high when they're peeking out here, because they have way too many other angles to worry about. And even when they're pushing onto site, nobody looks back and looks up that high to look at that camera. So that camera is very safe and gives you a lot of good information. So this is my #1 camera for on B site. You will almost always see me using this spot and not really use any others, because of how effective this one is and how rarely it ever gets shot out. Some other options that you do have though, this camera is still an option where you'll be able to see initially right when they push on in towards B, but that one is very risky. That one will immediately get shot out just about every single time if anybody's pushing up, so don't really rely on that one too much unless you just want that initial info. As far as on-site cameras go, this camera here, I can't seem to find a spot for. They might have patched this one out, but the only reason why I think they might not have, and there might be a spot there, is that this one still works just fine. It's relatively easy to get to. This will give you the same weird information on site. I never use this camera, so it's nothing crazy. It's just a weird one that you could have. You could also use some more passive on-site cameras. You can't put it on this tree up here, or back here you still have an option. And you can get it back on this wall too a little bit. These can be much better used for retakes and more passive cameras because there are a bit more of aggressive spots than a camera like that one. So just be careful in what you use and what information you're going to get. And for offense on B, this is still the best camera that you have. You get up on the box and get towards the front of it. You can jump and get it through the crack on the wall to that wall right over there. And this camera will give you really good information on defense. You could see a little bit into the market if they're holding this angle, which is the common one that people hold. So that's good information there. You do get a little bit cut off right here, though. So just be careful about that. If enemies are camping there, you won't be able to see it. So you do still have to check this corner when you're pushing up. But you can see this corner, and you can see if anybody's holding along this wall, too. And this one, enemies can't really hang out here either because you'll be able to see that. So that's a great offensive camera for B, and pretty much the best offensive camera besides the one on A. On mid, there really aren't many hidden options or very safe tricks that you can use. Every camera that you're going to have to send through mid is going to be pretty obvious to see by enemies, but you can always try something like just putting it on this wall here. Just because of how far away it is from mid, you might have that one stay alive for a bit longer, but it probably will get shot out right away. But you can get some quick information there if you want to peek mid with a camera. So those are all the best camera spots that I have for Ascent. So for split, it really hasn't changed all that much. You still have this spot back here.
This should do.
That's behind the thing. You can see it. You could see it through the cross right here. There's also this spot, which I've always been using.
Wow, this is a nice spot.
This will give you the same vision, and it'll get a little bit of cover through the screen itself, but enemies can shoot through the screen and shoot the camera out, so just be careful with that one. You'll get that similar information. You can also put it back here.
This goes here.
This one's significantly worse, though, from seeing on the left side, but you can still see if people cross over. But if they hug this wall and push up, you won't really know from this camera. But this will also give you information of the corner here, too, if anybody's camping there, if you're in a retake situation. And then once the barriers go down, this is still possible to put it on this billboard here. You can get the initial push if they're all pushing up there, but that will get shot out immediately, so that's a one-and-done camera. You can also get up here once the barrier goes down and put the camera up here. This will give you information if they cross over. You're not going to see much or for very long, but if enemies push up from B and then through, avoid the ramp and just go straight onto site, you'll be able to see if they cross through here. And also if they go straight up the ramp, you'll be able to see the corners here and be able to wall bang that if possible. The way to line this camera up, just make sure it's in the middle of these X's here, and then that way you'll get this little sliver right here to see through. And then for offense, once the barrier goes down here, if you line yourself up over here and try and aim for the top of this parallelogram here, you'll be able to see heads in heaven. If they go down onto onto out here a little bit, though, it'll be a bit tougher to see. But if they are over here looking from here, you'll be able to see them there. And they changed this a little bit. This sign right here has a less area between it. This used to be all open, so they just have that little spot open there now. So if you put this high enough, you'll be able to get some information if they're peeking that right side, this corner over here on the ramps. But you still won't get nearly as much information as you used to. That was a weird change they made, but I guess they did want to patch out this camera spot. You can adjust the height to figure out what spot or how much height you want to see if you see feet or a gun or a head instead. So yeah, just practice that spot to figure out what you want to see. For mid, you're still kind of stuck here. There aren't many options here. You can try and use walls like this or this thing over here to get some coverage of the camera, but this will get shot out pretty quick, but you will see that side. This camera over here, this will be covered a whole lot, but it might stick out a little bit for enemies to see when it is out, so just be careful with that one. But this one can be used pretty passively to wait for enemies to push through, and if they go towards the ropes or towards mail, you'll be able to know that. You can also put it up on this railing too if you wanted to, but that's also a bit obvious. You can't get it back on top of that, though. You can get it on these things, though. If you get this far enough back, you might be a bit better off there. Just because this won't get shot out, but you will be able to see if enemies push through towards mail. The closer you get it to the edge, the more you'll be able to see towards ropes instead, but also the riskier the camera gets, the more enemies will be able to see it. Also, from this side, you can get the camera over here. And this will give you some information looking through the edge of this sign here. But that will still give you limited information. But this one's also pretty blocked by that too. So you'll also be able to use this passively if enemies are pushing up. You can just kind of hang out with this camera or leave it hidden for a while and just wait and see if enemies are pushing through and which direction they're going. So those are your options for mid. Offensively, there really isn't much that's very hidden. You can't get it back behind the this door anymore, but you can still put it on the door if you wanted to. Anything that you do here, though, is going to be pretty obvious. So just be careful with your offensive cameras and be ready for them to get shot out, or get ready to just pull them back immediately to see to try and bait out any shots. And for B, my go-to camera is still lining up on this edge right here. Just be careful, you'll take damage if you actually fall there. And looking up as high as I can from here and jumping, putting the camera up. This will see if anybody crosses in and how many there are, and you'll be able to see over a sage wall if they do put one up there. Just know that this one won't give you a whole lot of information besides their initial push, but this one's also way too high for any enemies to really focus on and see. They're not really going to be looking up that high. Even if they're peeking towards heaven, their screen doesn't even see where that camera is. The FOV just doesn't look up that high. So this camera is almost always going to stay hidden, and in a retake situation, you can see a whole lot of heaven too. So that's a really good camera there. You can also get a bit more aggressive and put the camera somewhere like this. I see this a whole lot. Or if you're up here, you can put the camera even higher up there. And you can get pretty high with it if you're on this box. This will see into garage and give you information for when they're pushing. Same thing as the other camera, just a bit. This one is a bit more obvious, and enemies will be able to see this, but it'll give you a lot more information, especially where they like to plant and where enemies like to camp. So if you keep that camera hidden even after the initial push, that'll be a great retake camera and give you a whole lot of information. You could offensively have cameras. Anything is pretty obvious though. Just straight up back here to get a free peek. Or I also like to put it up here a lot on the initial push to see if I can get any info on heaven and anybody close here. You can't really see much left. You could put the camera up on this side though to get that information instead, but that's a whole lot more limited. And those are pretty much all the good camera spots for split. For bind, A is not my typical site that I like to hold. B is definitely a better site for CYPHER to hold, but as far as cameras go, this spot on heaven gives you a lot of good height to get some cameras up. You can put it up here on one of these spots, and this will give you some good information towards cubby and also on site a little bit. The lower you get it, also the more information you'll get towards bathrooms, but it'll also be a bit riskier from bathrooms. From there, they're not going to shoot it out from bathrooms, but it will be very exposed to anybody in cubby. You could also get it up on that spot over there. You just have to be close to the edge here.
That goes there.
Just anywhere on that wall will really give you the same information. It'll give you a lot of info on site for when they push up, because a lot of enemies like to put that sage wall up there. This will let you know if anybody's close over here. It won't see all the way behind the wall, but it will see some of it. And if enemies push through showers too, you'll be able to know when they're on site. The better cameras for A though are once the barriers go down. If you want to hold just showers and get some audio information from the cubby side, you can put the camera back here. This still works. You'll be able to see anybody hiding behind the walls here. And if they're pushing up through the bathrooms. Just be careful though, because if enemies are pushing up over this way, it's a bit cut off there. It's a bit of a blind spot. So don't just be looking through the camera waiting for people to push up and then blindly peek this corner without double checking. Because if you are on that camera over here and you just assume that nobody's there, they might be against the wall looking at this angle that you're at. So just be careful with that one. And over here is really the better spot. It's a bit tough because you have to start off right next to the barrier and retreat. But if you can get the camera just anywhere on the back of this wall here, this will give you better information because it's going to be looking at the backs of the enemies as they push up. And they're not really going to walk up this way and then turn around and look all the way up for that camera. So getting the camera back on this wall is probably the best choice here. You could get a bit more height from this box too if you really want to. But you're just going to be exposed from this angle right away. So just be careful with the quick peeks from enemies there. Now for B, this is another great spot to get some good cameras off. This camera spot still works. You'll be able to see down long right away, but enemies will be able to see that very easily. That camera gets shot out a lot, but it will give you really good information looking towards B long. You can also use the other barriers instead. They won't see nearly as much, really, if anything. If enemies are peeking back right along the edge there, you might see them. But this is mostly used for when enemies are on site. You can see a little bit into hookah there. Not really much, not enough reliably. But instead, you could just try and put the camera a little bit further to the right here. Then you'll be able to see a little bit more, but still not enough to really warrant that as a spot to see into hookah. But if enemies are in that corner, you will get some good information there. I also like to put the camera back here, just looking up as high as you can and jumping and placing the camera. This one's just really far back off of sight, so enemies kind of don't see as much, and you can see all the way into hookah up into the door. So this gives you great information. And like this spot on Ascent, if you look up into the side, you can still see it on the corner of your screen there, but the light that the camera produces won't be directly facing the enemies, so it makes it a bit harder for them to see. And this still gives you all the relevant information you really need, and you could always just turn it back if you really need to. So that's a great spot there. And one of my more preferred spots, this gives me great information of hookah. You can get it right on the edge of this hole in the ceiling here, and this will see through here. The camera will technically see through this curtain here, and enemies that are pushing up, if they're standing right here, You can't see them through the camera, but the camera will show them up on the map. So you can always just look at the map and count how many heads you see. And this will also give you information if enemies are hiding in this corner or in this corner. So you'll be able to wallbang those corners. You can't really ping them because it does get blocked by the other curtains, but at least you'll know and you can call it out to your teammates. You can also get cameras on the ceiling too. In weird spots like this, it pretty much works in random spots on the ceiling. So you can just look for these and try and find ones that suit your play style and suit whichever spots you find the best. But you can put them anywhere really on the ceiling from up here or even from over here. These are just weird spots that might give you some information that you might find useful or just good switch ups for cameras overall. You can also have the camera against this wall or on this spot over here, and this will give you the same information as that camera really. Once they push up and through, you'll be able to see a whole lot, and wherever they're camping inside of hookah, you'll be able to count how many enemies there are and give your teammates accurate information if they should rotate from A or not. Offensively, you really don't have that many options for bind. I don't really have any good ones for attacking B, but for A, really this isn't even like a great camera spot, but just putting the camera up here and getting a quick peek gives you all the information that you need for where enemies are camping out at, except for around bathrooms. You can see this spot right here though, but if enemies are camping here, you really won't be able to see it at all. But this camera will get shot out immediately, but again, it will give you all the information you need. So that's really the best offensive camera that I use for bind. So for Haven, when I'm playing Cypher, you can really hold any of the sites, and also in Garage. There are good cameras for all of them. For A, my typical camera is to crouch and put the camera up here or up here.
This goes here.
This will give you good information towards A short and A long. That really is the best camera. That doesn't get shot out that often, and when it does, you can also have some good switch ups anywhere around these pillars over here. And you can also get a camera up here. You just need to line up on this beam right here, and just be careful. If you go too close to the edge and you jump, you will get knocked off and you'll take damage for falling from that high. So you're going to want to line up almost at the edge and then just keep on spamming your jump and trying to get the camera up in here.
That goes there.
That'll land there, and it will give you good information all around sight. Sometimes it faces that way, which is like the opposite way, but other times it'll go the other way. If it's facing this way, you still get enough information. And this even gives you a little bit of info onto B too. So this is a weird camera that you can use. A bit risky to set up if you do take the fall and take damage. But if you can get good at consistently getting that camera up there, that's a great one to use. You can also make this jump over here, and then you can also have some options. You can get a camera up here.
This should do.
This will see on sight, and also when people push up towards B from or from A short,
Here.
if they're camping there, you'll be able to see it, and also right here. Another passive camera, good for retakes too. Those are the main cameras that I use for A on Haven. I'm not going to show you all of them because a lot of them are less useful and really don't give you much more information. When you're retaking a site, normally if I'm holding C or Garage or even B, mostly C or Garage though, because if you're on C and you have a camera up and you pick it up, by the time you get to here, if the bomb is planted on A, you'll have your camera back and you can get to here. Just jump and throw your camera right up here.
That goes there.
Just make sure you're looking low enough because you really have to like get it close to the ceiling there. This camera gives great information onto the whole site. You can see this corner over here a little bit. You can see a little bit into hell if anybody's in that corner of heaven, and also the default plant spots. You can get all that information from this retake camera. So this is one of the better ones. And moving on to B, you can get up here for some good height. These are some camera spots that you could get up here for some more aggressive looks towards window, or you can put it somewhere else more passively on the site itself, like back here. The best spots that I found for B though, if you line yourself up here before the round starts, you don't have to peek anything crazy, so you can just stand right here. You can look back pretty far and jump also. And get the camera up far back over here. You'll be able to hear a whole lot from Garage and also just from the grass area and window too. And if enemies push up, you'll be able to see where they push up, if they're hanging out in the cubby over here, or if they're on point in some of the areas where they plant. So if you're holding here, you'll hear towards A short. This camera will hear towards Garage and towards B. And so from these two spots, you can really get a lot of information on all three bomb sites. For Garage, the main spot that I still use is right here. This will give you information when they push into Garage, but it's also kind of obvious. Most of the spots in here are pretty obvious because the room is so small. But you can also put the camera up here. You can see a bit more in towards grass and get more early peeks at enemies pushing through, but it's also pretty obvious to see. And your other options really are just the back over here. You can see enemies once they push in. They won't really look this high up. If you really want to get a safer camera, this corner is even safer. And you can see how many enemies push through and which way they go once they push through. So that's a good camera there. And for C, the best options that you have, if you go up on this platform, you'll have the best range for finding cameras all over the site. You can put the camera back up here. This will give you more passive information once they push on site. They're not really going to check for this camera spot, so you can see where they're planting and where the enemies are camping. Especially for a retake situation, that's good. And you can just keep on backing up the camera and get more and more aggressive. you'll see a bit more up long from here, and you'll see pretty much the same information. It's just a bit more of a risky camera. And you can even do the same thing back here. Again, the same idea. Less information on site though, but more towards C long. Less so than a spot like this though, but a spot like this, it will get shot out almost immediately, but you'll get the earliest information possible. The spot that I like to use the most, once the round is about to start, you can line up against the barrier and just put the camera somewhere back here. And then retreat off this way. And this will hear if anybody's pushing up towards long, and you'll also be able to see anybody in the cubby and pushing through. And this is a difficult spot to see too for any attackers. They're not really going to turn around and look that high up, so that's a really good spot there. And then one more spot, you can aim towards the back of this roof here, and then you'll be able to see a little bit through some cracks towards C long. And you'll also be able to see once they push up too. If you land the camera right here in this spot, you'll be able to see through this little crack here and see if anybody is pushing up or peeking from this corner and see long. And this spot is kind of just the top edge of this spot right here. Again, you can see it a little bit there. Just aiming for just as far to the left of this tile as you can get. And also, once enemies start pushing up, you will also get some information there, and you'll be able to see the default plant spot too, so you can ping where the bomb is being planted at. So just you can try and practice that camera and get it consistently good, or you can just go with the safer camera and just put it up here. So those are all the camera spots that I have for all maps. All of these work in the most recent patch. I am on the most recent patch right now, so feel free to use those in games from now and probably in the future, because these spots have been pretty good and consistent throughout the game, and they haven't been patched out yet. So I'm assuming that these spots will be here for a long time. So you can use whatever ones you want and keep on watching this video to remember where these spots are. So thanks for watching the video, guys. Don't forget, I do stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, and also on Sunday nights around 8 p.m. Eastern. And we also have a Discord server again where we post lineups and camera spots for all different heroes. So be sure to join that, and you can get the latest on things that I'm doing on my channel too. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Valorant content. And thanks again for watching the video, guys.